This content is brought to you by Huawei. With nearly $2 trillion worth of goods being counterfeited each year, there is a need for technology that protects both brands and their consumers. David Geisser, who was affected by this himself, found a way to use blockchain technology to assign an ID to products and make it impossible to duplicate them. Enjoy this video interview directly from MWC in Barcelona. David, welcome. It's such a pleasure to have you here and to talk about you, get to know you better, and to get to know collectID better. I think it's a very exciting startup you're working on. But as you know, our videos are geared towards investors. So what they are most curious always is to know who are the people, who is the team behind every startup. So, just to get started, tell us who you are, and then we'll take it from there.
Thank you very much, Cedric. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name is David. I grew up in the eastern part of Switzerland, and I studied business innovation at University of St. Gallen.
Yes, another fellow alumni.
Yeah. There are quite some.
Yes.
And I did some exchanges also in Stanford and in Russia. So it was very cool to see both, let's say both sides.
Yes.
And after that, I did so typical University of St. Gallen career. So I worked in consulting for some years, and then that was the point where I started collectID. So that's why I'm here today.
Cool. So tell me, starting your own company, especially coming out of St. Gallen and then a corporate career, is somewhat of a transition, I would say, and definitely adds a lot of layers of stress. How was it for you, to make this transition?
Yeah, to be honest, there was quite a changing point in my life. So I had a little injury with my hip.
Yeah.
From skiing. So I was sick for quite some days, and then this was like a long holiday for me, but there was a perfect time to think about where I'm going right now. Is this really what I want to do for the next 3 to 4 years? And yeah, I decided that's not. So the decision was quite easy.
Yeah.
And in terms of, let's say, security, or I always think that, of course, it's quite a risk doing your own thing, but it can also be quite a risk to work for a corporate company for so many years, and then at some point you get fired or you have to renew yourself. So I don't think that it's not secure to start something yourself, actually.
Mm-hmm. And tell me, what motivated you to start something?
First of all, I want to take my own decisions, or the decisions within the team, skill-based decisions. So if someone of our team has a good reason why we should do this or why we shouldn't do it, then we do it like this. And I think in a lot of companies, it's much more about your hierarchy or your status.
Yes.
So for me, it was really important to just take my own decisions, to do what I want to do and what we want to do within the team. That's why I think that was one of the most important reasons to me to start something.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So let's talk about collectID. Let's first, for someone who has no idea what it is, maybe give me just a quick rundown of what you guys do.
Okay, so what we do is basically we protect products, focus on luxury products and sports merchandising from getting counterfeited. So as you know, there is a lot of fake handbags, fake shirts, fake sneakers or whatever. And how it works is basically we integrate a very small NFC tag into the product that contains a unique identity. So every product gets its own identity. It's dynamically encrypted in a way that you cannot copy it or duplicate it. So this is the hardware part of it. And then we take this unique identity, we create an NFT, a non-fungible token out of it, and we store it on the blockchain and assign it to the respective owner. Then in the end, you have a clear decentralized register of all products with all owners. So you know exactly who owns what, and it's not possible to change this information. And for the end consumer, you basically just tap the product with your smartphone. You get the information if it's authentic or not, and you can register it to yourself, and you can, of course, easily transfer it to someone new. So it's about authenticity when you buy it, but it's also about authenticity for the lifetime of the product. So it doesn't stop when you buy it.
Where are you standing right now with the development of the company?
We are on the market now for a little bit longer than a year.
Yeah.
We have closed some, for us, very significant deals. So for example, in the sports industry, we work together with football clubs like Young Boys Bern, FC Zurich, FC St. Gallen, or some ice hockey clubs as well. The same in the fashion industry. So I would say we have some clients, small to medium size, where we prove that the solution creates value added for them. And now it's all about doing this next step to win the bigger clients. In the sports industry, it's very easy to describe. So doing the step from the Swiss League to the Bundesliga or Premier League or Primera División.
So let's say I go to a store and I want to buy Swiss national team shirt, and then it will have like a badge inside there, or like some sticker that says collectID, and I can then just know exactly like that I'm the first owner of this, let's say. But can I also like know, for example, if Cristiano Ronaldo was wearing a shirt, and then I know which one it is, and if I buy it, like I know that owner number one was Cristiano Ronaldo, and now it's mine.
Yeah, exactly. You basically described two different use cases. So one is you really go in the store and just buy the normal shirt. So you check the authenticity. Maybe you own it to get some additional content. So you get the highlights of the European Championship tournament or something like that. And then, of course, we can also embed that into the game-worn jerseys. So let's say Cristiano Ronaldo wore it, or a other famous player wore it. And basically, we can... The product is stored on the blockchain, but also every history, every important information related to that product is stored on the blockchain as well. So you can, for example, store this information, or if you would translate it in the world of watches, you can store the service history of the product as well on the product. So you know exactly, okay, this watch was serviced that many times in that time frame. So this is exactly what we do.
A lot of information that you can get like as a consumer. So what's on the roadmap for you? Like what are you looking to do in the next couple of months?
I think the two most important milestones for the next 6 months is, on the one hand, to, as I said, doing this step from first very good clients for us to the major brands.
Yeah.
And the second thing is about raising new funds to get this journey done. And that's why we do a fundraising until the end of the year.
What is kind of like the number you're aiming for?
Yeah, so we searched 2.5 million.
Okay.
It's equity financing. We want to close it by the end of November. And we mainly use it for actually to accelerate our growth. So it's not so much about developing the product. Of course, there is some funds that go into the product, but it's really about accelerating the speed in the sales.
What I like to do is especially us as entrepreneurs, we need to like think in long-term thinking. So, you know, if you ask in the corporate world, I'm sure you know, like people think about like 1 or 2 years max, maybe quarters sometimes even, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think for us, it's a little bit different. We got to think in decades, generation. Jean-Claude Biver, I'm sure you know him. He said like you have to think in eternity times, which I think is major if you think about what that means.
Yeah.
But tell me, like, where would you like your company, collectID, to be in a decade from now?
I want to collectID to become the PayPal for authentication. So that means we do not need to own the marketplaces like eBay or in Switzerland, Tutti or other marketplaces. We simply integrate our solution in these kind of marketplaces. And whenever you buy or sell a product on a secondary market, you basically have the information, whether it's authentic or not, based on the collectID, and that's where we want to go.
Mm-hmm. Talk to me about the market itself. I mean, like you go after the luxury brands, you go about after the sports. I mean, I'm sure there's a ton of other, I can think of sneakers. It's a huge hype around sneakers at the moment. I think more in the US than in Europe. How are you, let's say, quantifying the market, and what are you liking to capture?
So as you just said, the focus is very clear. And I think this is one of the most important things for us at collectID, to have this very clear focus. Yeah. Because whenever I speak to a person, it's like, okay, why don't you do this for golf bets? Why don't you do this for bicycles or whatever? Yeah, so there's so many opportunities, and it's really difficult and super important to not distract and be really focused on those verticals where we see the biggest potential. So for us, it's really about luxury industry and the sports industry. That's just key that we're not distracted. But of course, if we look like 5-10 years in the future and we are successfully established in these industries, it's super easy to adapt it to a new product. So the solution is pretty agnostic. As soon as you can attach the tag to the product, it doesn't matter if it's actually a golf bat or a sneaker or a handbag. But it's just, in terms of sales, it's super important for us to have this very clear focus.
Right. So tell me about just from a logistical perspective, I mean, I can imagine like there's some hardware to it, which is probably like these NFT tags. They're probably not that expensive, but how does it work with the manufacturer? Like, are you selling to the manufacturer? They're like adding it to the jerseys, or how does it work?
Yeah, so basically we have different points of entry. So of course for us, the closer we get to the manufacturing, the better. So when we can actually embed the tag during the production, this is super efficient, it's less costly, and it gives us the highest security because really the tag is in the product from the moment it is basically born. The second possibility, what we often do in the sports industry, is that we print or flock the tag on the jersey when it's already produced. This gives us a lot more flexibility when it comes to pilot projects.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's possible to add the tag like a hang tag. So for example, if you're a trading platform on the secondary market, it's also possible that you authenticate a product and then add our tag. But the aim is to get into the production and we just do the flocking because it gives us more flexibility and we really do not focus on everything that is past. We have solutions for it, but the focus is again very clearly on the production because it's less expensive and a lot more secure.
And much more efficient.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
like that is by definition, if you can like do thousands of shirts because you integrate it into the process of the manufacturing, can be definitely much more valuable.
We have a really good example right now. We work together with a Brazilian football club, and for them it's super important to get the tags during the fabrication process because then the step of integrating it is no additional step because they flock the club's logo on the jersey and they just put the chip underneath it. But if they have to do it in the end and again touch all 100,000 shirts again, you can imagine that this is quite some work. So this is a very good example of why it's important to get into the production process.
Interesting. I just imagine like now, you know, as you finish, Portugal is at the end of their match and like he's taking off his shirt, throwing it into like, you know, you can see then like on the tag, like this was Ronaldo's and then like he still needs to transfer it, I guess.
No, in that case, it really, we have this case with FC Zurich where we equip the game-worn jerseys as well. And it exactly works like you just said, because you already code the jersey that it was in this game from this player. And you can always upload content afterwards. So let's say you want to add the highlights from the game. You can still do that afterwards. So it's super easy. Players can just throw the t-shirt into the crowd. People scan it and can own it. So it's
so it's already ready for a new owner.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
And this is very important because otherwise it would be quite the challenge if you need the players to transfer.
It's like 1 second, let me get my phone. And like, tell me about the revenue and business model that you are aspiring to have or already have.
Yeah, so existing revenues already. So what we do is basically brands or sport clubs pay per product. Yeah. So it's a very simple business model. They pay per product that is added to our ecosystem. And then a second source of revenue is about people that transfer products on a secondary market. So they pay a small fee, the buyer side, to get this authenticity guarantee. And this is something we don't charge right now. So we still do it for free right now. But we know that people have a very high willingness to pay for it when you give this authenticity guarantee. So for example, existing sneaker trading platforms, they charge 15 to 20% sometimes of the sales price. So if you buy a sneaker for $400, it's easily possible that you pay $50 to $80. All this said, I think for us right now, the revenue is not the most important goal because you can imagine if we are managing to have millions of products with millions of owners, I think the most important and the most valuable is actually the data. So to know who owns what, it's a super efficient weapon to target those customers very individually, to target and to offer them highly customized solutions and highly customized offers for each individual customer. And therefore, I think for us, if we manage to get this number of products in our ecosystem, the revenue right now is probably not as important compared to what we can get out later. Yeah.
Let's talk about the ecosystem a little bit. Let's talk about like how you perceive the Swiss startup ecosystem. So how overall, like what are your feelings towards the ecosystem?
I mean, this is super important for us and it helped us a lot. So first of all, we have the ecosystem around the University of St. Gallen in Eastern Switzerland, which helped us very much with first grants and also connections to investors, connections to potential first clients. And then we have initiatives like Venture Leaders or the Swiss Startup Days, InnoSwiss. And I think all these things are very important for every founder. You should take the best out of it, like we do here in Barcelona. So we are here with Venture Leaders, and this gives us a lot of possibilities. And I think you would be very stupid if you don't use these chances and get the best out of it. Yeah.
You also raised some money. You have some, let's say, VIP advisors, if I remember correctly. Tell me, how do you perceive the investor landscape in Switzerland?
I was quite lucky. So I met some people that have founded already companies and they know how it works. So actually they are VCs now, and they helped me a lot with introducing me to the Swiss Angel Network, if you like. But I think in the end, there is so many organizations, Venture Leaders, the local ones in Switzerland, SICTIC, for example. So you just need to do some research. And I think this is really something where we are really good at collectID, is to build a strong network. So as you said, we have super good industry-specific advisors. So we have former CEOs of watch companies. We have football players. We have people that worked at FIFA for many, many years. And on the other hand, we have very good entrepreneurial advisors, people that built and also exited their own companies. And I think this is one of the most important things, especially in our business, because we need to speak with the C-level guys at the companies. And if you approach them on cold call, it can work. It actually worked already, but chances to get a good introduction is much higher if you have someone that introduces you there.
So tell me, is there anything in the Swiss ecosystem that you would say like, yeah, that could use some improvement, or like something that you are missing? They would say like, oh, it would be great, to have something like this available.
I think generally, and this is, I think, very closely connected to the Swiss mentality. So we like things that work. So this is also true for investors.
I think they want to know that it works.
Exactly. They want to know
like
that it works.
If you're convinced that it works, then that's
not enough. No, that's exactly the point. So I saw that when we raised our pre-seed round, which is, as the name says, it's pre-seed, so it's pre-revenue. And I remember I was there with a very nice pitch deck, but most of the Swiss investors, they wanted to see the product. They wanted to see the solution actually working. And I said, yeah, okay. When I think about my time that I spent in California, is everybody says, yeah, just do it. Just do it. It's nice. And here in Switzerland, it's a lot more about the but. So you hear a lot, yes, but, yes, but. And that doesn't mean that everything in America is great. So you hear a lot of yes, and then it still takes a long time to get something nailed. But I think when I would wish one thing for the Swiss startup ecosystem is that we, and I don't mean just the startups, also the investors, are a little bit more bold, are a little bit more risk-taking, because there is a lot of money here, and we have great minds, but sometimes I would wish just to tackle really the big problems, the big companies, to build the Facebook, to build the Airbnb, because we barely see those companies coming from Europe, and we almost never see those companies coming from Switzerland.
Yeah.
Yet. Of course, it has to do also because we don't have this like 300 million market, so you can just address a small market also with the language and everything. But still, I would just wish that the early stage money and the early stage investors would be a little bit more open to this kind of going big ideas where you cannot instantly generate revenue, or where you maybe not even have developed a product completely, but you already need to raise 1 or 2, 3 millions to just
continue.
Get there. Yeah, exactly.
Good. So the next topic is all about like mental health and productivity. I said to myself, like, I think it's a very important topic. Obviously everybody faces some challenges on their own, and I just decided to become more vocal about this also on my channels to, show different perspectives, how people handle. Some people that I've spoken to have a lot of stress. Some people like they handle it very well. But I think like what's important here is the exchange of information, the exchange of experience, and the exchange of knowledge and like what other people go through. Maybe you can share a little bit like, what it's like for you to have your own company to run, to have payrolls, all of these type of things, and like how are you feeling like throughout this process?
So first of all, I think it's great from you, Cedric, that you address this topic, because we speak a lot about this, I'm so stressful and this is blah, 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 but we don't really speak what's about behind. So I think it's super important to address this topic. Thank you very much for that. And when it comes to me, to be honest, the last 6 months, especially from January, they were super stressful. So we have to close these bigger deals. We started the next round, and I'm really working a lot, and I also feel that physically. So on the other side, I almost train every day. I try to eat healthy. Try to drink not too much, which is difficult here in Barcelona. But
you mean alcohol?
Of course, water. I drink a lot, but I think trying to do everything around as good as possible so that I have enough energy to get the job done. But this is, let's say, the physical stress, and then there is like the stuff you just mentioned. You have your payroll, you have your burn rate, you have your runway, and this is just a constant pressure of you have to be successful. You need to reach the next milestones. And just to share a short episode, when we were running in this COVID crisis a little bit more than a year ago, and no one actually know where we gonna go, and you have your payroll. So this was very stressful because I didn't know where the situation will evolve. And on the other hand, you have your employees, which maybe have families, they have kids as well. So you want to be there for them. And I think this is more stressful for me, to have this constant pressure of achieving the next milestone, while just, let's say, working 80 hours a day, working on the weekends. This is stressful for my girlfriend, but not so stressful actually for me, because
you're busy.
I really love what I do. I mean, sometimes it's also hard, but if you have the sales tasks, or if you have to work on the product, this is actually fun, and you do it for yourself. So you don't work for your boss or for your investors, you work for yourself and for your team. So I think for me, it's more about this long-term pressure, doing this and this and this, and it's never over. So you reach the milestone, and then it's just about the next one, next one. At certain times, you just need to be able to push something away, because if you constantly think about your problems, I would probably never sleep again. And I'm really good at this. So I can work the whole day, and then I can stop at 8, and we can go for a drink, not speak about business. I completely forget everything. And then when I go back to the hotel room at 10, so I do another 2 hours of emails. So this is very cool, because I can just push it away and then grab it again. And I think this is very important, because otherwise you go nuts.
But I think it's a muscle you have to train. I definitely had to get it into this, especially I have wife and kids, luckily. But I was saying it just takes up a lot of your brain space, the company and the family. And when you're home, you want to be home. And for me and my wife also, we had to figure out a system that works in a way that we can really live in a way that helps us to really turn off for this time period that we want to be with the kids and with each other. And I think that is super crucial. It takes time, especially, I think the ops is one thing, the ops, when it goes great, you just close your round, you have a new client, everybody's happy, that's great. But I think on the downside, they're really low. My wife keeps telling me that as an entrepreneur, you have very high highs and very low lows.
Yeah,
so there's not much in between. I think in corporate life, it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
I don't have too much experience, but in corporate life, it's more it's a little like this, but at the end of the month, you always get your paycheck.
Yeah. I think these are two very important points. So I always say to not celebrate the highs too much, because it can go down again very quickly, and to not be, let's say, too much affected from the downs. And the other thing is about turning off. So what you just said with your kids, with your wife, some people have to learn it, but for me, honestly, I think it's quite easy to have this balance where I'm not focusing on the business at all.
I definitely agree that, and I do it like for about like 30 hours every week, like Friday night till Saturday night. I'm fully offline. But again, like I personally sometimes struggle with the guilt, you know, like especially when you turn on social media and you see Gary Vee, like
LinkedIn,
LinkedIn, and you see like everybody's like working, and like so for me, like it's hard. But I think like now I got to this point where it's really about like, yeah, it's good for my mental health, and it's good to exercise, it's good to be with the family, and it, you know, like I've been saying this for a while now, but like I think it's the first time I'm saying this on the record, but like basically I think it's not beneficial for anybody involved if the founder gets burned out. It's not going to help your investors, it's not going to help your employees, and definitely not going to help yourself. So
yeah, absolutely.
Like to focus on it like enough that like you can like survive this marathon is crucial.
Exactly. It is a marathon. So if you burn out the first 100 meters, it doesn't help, as you say, it doesn't help you, it doesn't help your investors, and it doesn't help the company at all. I mean, yeah, this social media, it's probably more of a pain for you with your followers because you have some more than we have. But just a few days ago, someone told me like LinkedIn is the new Facebook. So you might remember like these days, Facebook, everybody has the best life. Now it's just advertising, but actually, this is LinkedIn. So if you go through LinkedIn in the evening and fuck, this guy's raised a new round. So yeah, okay, congrats, but fuck,
why not me?
Yeah, we need to raise again. But you should really not do this. And the same is with the competition. I mean, there is like almost every week at least where an investor is sending me a link from a new competitor. So sometimes most of the time we already know them, maybe we have already analyzed them. The best thing is if we can, let's say, send them a video back where we crack the product like in 2 minutes. But still, you have to deal with the competition. You need to be aware of the competition. Otherwise, it's just, this would be silly. But I don't think you should watch too much on them, because in the end, it's about what you do. It's about what you want to invest your energy. And I prefer to build something, to have this positive energy instead of looking right and left and just seeing what the others are doing and being afraid of it. Yeah,
I think what helped me a lot was the acceptance that we can both build high risers, you know, like there's no reason, even if you're in the same field and you maybe share similar markets that you try to tackle, I think that's definitely possible. Let's talk a little bit more about productivity. I mean, again, like once, let's say you have a check on the mental health, like you still want to stay productive. Is there anything like that you do specifically to make sure like you can get a lot done throughout the day?
I think the biggest pain is actually the distraction. So mails, WhatsApp, Slack, calls constantly flowing in during the day, and I think for me it's really difficult to stay focused on one topic during the day. So what I do, go for dinner or I eat something, and then I sit back on the desk, and these hours, like for example from 9 to 12, this is really when I can be most productive, because then there is little calls coming in, little WhatsApp or emails coming in. So this is the time where I can really focus on one task for 3-4 hours when I have to really to think. Yeah, the other thing I think with this mobile environment and everything, so you can do some mails in the bus, or even if you're on a convention, you can work mobile from your booth or something like that. So for me, the most important thing is when I really have to think, I need some peace, I need some quiet environment to get that done. And this is, to be honest, for me it's really difficult to do that during the day, because there is like the team members, they want something from you, the customers, the enablers, the advisors, the investors, and of course you can sometimes ignore it if it's not that important, but it still distracts you, right? If you get an email, you start thinking about it, even if you just read the headline. So it's really about. And I think this is also very important. I recently read a study that says that multitasking is not good for our brain. And this is crazy, because we do that constantly. And if you think, when was the last time where you had the chance to focus on a task for 4 hours without any interruption? You really have to try that and turn off your mobile or put it in another room, close the emails and everything. And you will see it's really difficult for us to focus on one task for 3-4 hours. And there are studies that it's not good for the mental health, that is also has impact on certain disease like Alzheimer, for example. I don't have the solution right now. As I said, still through the day, there's so much distraction, but I think this is really a topic where I want to get better and understand it better, how to manage. Yeah,
I mean, I can on this topic, just because you're mentioning it, I can recommend you 3 books. One is The Joy of Work from Marie Kondo. I don't know if you know Marie Kondo. She wrote a very famous book about the joy of tidying up, I think it's called. So like, organizing everything in your home. And her second book is about joy at work. Then the second one, Deep Work. And from the same author, it's a book called Digital Minimalism. And there they also talk exactly about this, that like today we can't probably go for 30 minutes without distraction. So it falls into the 4 hours.
Yeah.
And the second thing what was very interesting is that like many people get confused between task hopping and multitasking. So multitasking is like if I literally do 2 things at the same time. So playing the piano and sending a text message as an example, or drinking and texting. But like what I can't do is writing an email and then searching something on the web. That's not multitasking. That's usually hopping in between tasks, which is a misconception that we have.
That's actually true. What I was referring to is actually this task hopping. Yeah, that's.
Yeah,
and I will definitely read one of these books.
Start with Digital Minimalism, and then that opens up the conversation for the other ones.
Okay.
So what's your favorite book and why?
I don't remember the title, to be honest. I just lost it at the moment, but it is about scaling. And actually the key message is speed over efficiency. And I think this is really difficult for us, so because always you want to be efficient, but it's exactly.
If you could choose between an exit or an IPO for your company, what would you choose and why?
If I can choose IPO, and why? Because I can still be part of that company, still run it maybe as a CEO, because I love what we do and I want to continue that.
Yeah, very good. What is for you a successful entrepreneur?
Exit or IPO.
So purely financial, I guess.
No, not really. But in the end, I think if you get there, then you achieved your vision, you achieved your mission. And of course, this is much more than funding. But yeah, I think this is, if you look at the entrepreneurs out in the space, it's really about where you can say, okay, you build something that someone else bought. Or if you do an IPO that millions of people bought, so that means you created something that is valuable, and I think that means you solved the problem, you achieved your mission, and yeah, that's where I want to go.
Good. If you think of one reason your startup could fail, what would it be?
Timing. Yeah.
What is success in life for you?
Beside the success with the startup, I mean, this is really important for me as well, to be honest. I don't want to lie here. It's about family. So I have a great family. I have 2 brothers. I have very, very good relation with them. These are my best friends. And I want to have my own family like you at some point. And I think this is the most important thing that you can have in life.
Yeah. I can only agree. So, and the last one for today is like, what's your best advice that you've ever gotten, or that you would like to give over to your future kids or next generation?
I think, and I got this advice from one of the founders of On, the sneaker company from Switzerland, and he basically said to me that everything is negotiable, because you often hear a lot like, this is standard, we do it like this.
Always been done like that.
Yeah, it's always been done like this. This is standard. And in the end, actually everything is negotiable, and there are many ways to do something. It's not just the one way. And I think this is very important to keep that in mind. Doesn't matter if you deal with a client or with an investor. So yeah, everything is negotiable.
Very good. David, thank you so much for your time. It
was
a real pleasure to talk to you and like to get to know you better. And I think we covered a lot of ground, a lot of different ground. And it was very exciting to get to know you. Thank you very much. And I wish you much success on the continued journey of your company. I hope you get to this IPO rather sooner than later. And I'm excited to watch, at least from the sideline, to see you being successful.
Thank you very much, Cedric. Really appreciate this interview, and so let's see where it goes. And also with your blog or with your interviews, I think it's really good what you do, and it's super valuable for the ecosystem here in Switzerland. So thank you as well from my side, but also from the Swiss startup side. So it's really cool.
Thank you very much.